Dear Gabriele, it's so nice that we can to meet in your home.
Yes.
Thank you that you agree for this interview. This is a chance for our Russian-speaking listeners of our channel to see real truth about the situation now in Europe, in the world, and especially in Catholic Church. First, my question will be about sexualization of children, because now to the Belarus there are efforts to introduce in the school small things. So they begin always from very far of sexual education. So what, in your opinion and about your experience, what will be next with this sexualization of children? What is the main danger of this idea?
Sexualization of children started immediately with the 6-8 rebellion of the students. It was already in focus, and the 6-8 movement said and proclaimed children are sexual beings, they have a right for sexuality. We must give them a chance to live out their sexual desires, children. And that meant for the movement of 6-8, for the students of 6-8, who were pupils of Wilhelm Reich, Wilhelm, I'll explain in a moment, to have sex with children, to have sex in front of children, and to encourage children to have sexual plays. And they founded something which was not kindergarten, but Kinderläden was the name for it. And they allowed children to, this was combined with the anti-authoritarian movement. And they said, let children do what they want, and we do not direct them at all. And we allow them and encourage them to have sexual, it's always called doctor plays. We will encourage them to do that.
It was immediately introduced where? In Germany? In
Germany, the 6-8 movement came over from Berkeley, and the theoretical background is the so-called Frankfurter Schule, which is Adorno, Horkheimer, Marcuse, and Habermas, the next generation. He's still alive. He is the German philosopher, and they had exiled. They went to the United States during the Nazi dictator, and there they already introduced sexual education for children. Then they were called back to Germany immediately after the war in 1946, and Horkheimer even became the director, the rector of the Frankfurt University. They were communists. They had edited Marx and Lenin, the so-called blue volumes, and they understood, Wilhelm Reich, he understood and has put it in his work, The Sexual Revolution. He has published a work called The Sexual Revolution. And he said, if we want to bring down the bourgeois society, we have to sexualize children. And it's on paper. You can get, I have the book next door, that he understood. He was a pupil of Sigmund Freud. He separated from Sigmund Freud. He was a communist. And he said, sexualize children and you will bring down the so-called bourgeois society. That was the aim. He understood that is the mechanism. It will destroy the family. And by that, it will destroy the whole so-called bourgeois society.
So it began, in fact, it began from Frankfurt. So
yes, they were they delivered the ideas. But it actually, the movement had begun in Berkeley. And it came over to Germany and immediately kind of incited, inflamed Germany, and France were the first countries, like a virus, yes. And it spread like wildfire.
So, and you see already the results of this, yes?
Exactly.
There are already 2 generations of
Three since 68, yeah.
Three.
We're now the grandparents, or maybe two or three, however you count it. It is my generation, and the grandparents already are their value system has been changed by these ideas which were immediately picked up by the media, positively picked up by the media.
Yes.
And they always want sensational stories, so they put these pictures. There were two famous communes, grown-up people who lived together with children and had naked photos and said, we must destroy marriage because marriage is a bad institution because you possess each other and we want to be free. And one of the main philosophers was Herbert Marcuse. He wrote a book called Erosion and Civilization, and he belongs to the Frankfurter Schule. I actually met him as a student. I had an argument with him, I remember, and he said, put this poisonous idea into the minds of that generation. If you allow a society to live by the Lustprinzip, by the principle of satisfaction of sexual lust, then you will have paradise. Then you will have no power structures. You will bring down the hierarchy. Everyone will be happy. So that was his message. Of course, much more complicated in his book. But that was the essence of his message, and that was the poison that infiltrated the minds of the 68 generation.
My second question. So, the results of this sexualization of children, what is the most dangerous result, what you see right now in Europe, of this already 3-generation sexualization?
Yes. Sexual constraint, moral constraint of the very strong power of sexuality is necessary if you want to have a family. It is a very easy thought. If a married couple or unmarried couple, a couple, allows each other to have sex, or one of the couple has sex outside the relationship, this relationship is in great danger, and usually it goes into separation. So, faithfulness of a couple is necessary to have a working family, and every child on this earth wants their biological parents to be faithful to each other. Every child. And to want this family to stick together. So if we allow, the sexual drive is powerful, because the sexual drive ensures that human life on earth will continue. So we have this sexual urge, we have this sexual, very powerful attraction between man and woman. Usually between man and woman, and evolution demands that it's between man and woman. If it's not between man and woman, the chances are bad for the survival of the human race. If that would become the normal way of having sexual relationships. So this drive is very strong, and it has to be cultivated by the human being. We have to be the masters of the sexual drive, and not the other way around, that the sexual drive drives us beyond any control. This is what we are happening now. So we must be educated. The sexual drive must be cultivated so it can become an expression of love between a couple. The unifying quality. It is absolutely wonderful to have sexual unity in a framework of faithfulness, where you can really surrender to the other person and say, yes, my love, I love you, and therefore I give myself to you. And the other person says the same. And then you have a unity of love, and out of this unity of love comes life. But you must be educated for that. And if you are not educated as a child, if you don't get the message in your head, this is an ideal, strive for that ideal, and if you're not educated, then it goes wild. And this is what has been done intentionally by the sexual revolution. And now we have a generation, families are falling apart. Children are pushed into sexual activity in kindergarten now. And I can enlarge on how all this came about in Germany. Yeah?
In your opinion, saying children about love, about chastity, and about fidelity, is it possible to say about this in schools, or just parents can do it?
I think sexual education should be taken out of schools completely.
Totally.
I think this should be our demand also. I think that it's okay to give them biological information. They learn about plants, they learn about animals, let them learn about the human being at the right time. The biological facts.
That we have now in Belarus.
And that is okay, of course. They should, and I think then parents should be educated.
Right.
Because for parents it's touchy. How do we speak about, they don't really want to speak about sexuality. It's something between the adults and it should be in their bedroom, and the children should be left alone with that. Yes. But they need education, they need to have a vision for their own life of what a married life is. They need the vision. So I think parents should be educated.
So
how to speak to their own children. Yes. Parents usually love their children.
Yes.
They know where a child is at. We all know as parents, I have 3 children, I have 5 grandchildren. We know they are all different. They are different in their development. A parent knows, the children ask. They ask when they are small, and when they are bigger, they ask how do the babies get into the tummy of the mother. They see a pregnant mother, they want to know. And usually at a small age, you give them a very simple answer, then the answers become more complicated. And you should answer your children.
Well, normally, this is a question for parents.
But parents very often do not talk about it. They are shy to talk about it.
Yes,
and they don't know how to do it.
Yes,
so I would not educate children. I would educate parents and give them the language and encourage them. Yes, it is okay. Father, take your son and tell him what it's about at the appropriate age.
Yes.
When you feel, this boy is coming into puberty, he should know about it. Now I will tell you. I want to tell you. And the mother should take her daughter, who will go into puberty, will have her menstruation and so on, and will tell her what femininity is about, what motherhood is about, what marriage is about, that she should really, how she should choose her husband, how a boy should choose their spouse and so on. So I think it would be a wonderful task of the church to have courses for parents. How do you speak to your children?
Good idea.
Because parents usually don't know how to do it. They are shy, they keep it for themselves and allow children to be informed by the internet, by what is so terrible. Pornography is normal now. Children from 10, 11, 12 normally see pornography. Yes. It may be the very first information they get about sex through pornography. And this is terrible. Yes. This is terrible because they see the lowest exploitative form of sexuality. And we want to give them the vision. We want to tell them it's a beautiful gift of God. It is a very beautiful thing, but you have to prepare yourself and become strong and make a plan for your life. And this is the message they should get. The sexual education should not be in schools at all. Yeah?
Okay, thank you. So probably you should give some examples how it's doing now in Germany.
Oh, I will.
I think it's important. Please, probably in kindergarten or something, because when people hear about it, so you're like is testimony about this. What
I will. So there's one man in Germany who actually is the main person who introduced sexual education in the whole education system. His name is Uwe Sielert. And he is a pupil of Helmut Kendler. Both are professors. Helmut Kendler was a professor at the University of Hanover, and he now is publicly recognized as a pedophile homosexual who he was allowed to make Gutachten, to give statements to the court for delinquent juveniles, and he transferred these delinquent or the court did, on his recommendation, transferred these delinquent juveniles to homosexual communities of men. This is the father, the spiritual father of Uwe Sielert. This is out in the public now. Wikipedia says he is the Ziehsohn, he is the sort of the intellectual son of Kendler. You can read it in Wikipedia. Kendler was a criminal homosexual pedophile. And nothing happens.
Yes.
And Uwe Sielert founded an institute, Institut für Sexualpädagogik. He did a degree, this is a scientific degree of sexual education when you were educated in his institution. He published a book called Lisa und Jan. Here, parents, in this book, parents watch their children masturbating. They show how should children masturbate with a shower, with a friend. This is a very well-known established publisher who published that, yeah, and.
But it's pornography.
It is pornography, yes, and children should watch their parents, and it's all. And this is it's a normal book published by Belz Verlag, who does normal pedagogical literature, yeah, and he is the man. I don't know which birthday of his was, there was a Festschrift for him, and the man who writes about him says he planted the whole garden of sexual education in Germany, and he actually did, yeah. He advised the government, he advised the churches, he was in the official institutions of the state, Bundeszentrale für gesundheitliche Aufklärung in Germany. He was everywhere. And he is the adoptive son, so to speak, spiritually, of Helmut Kendler, who was a pedophile homosexual criminal. And nothing happens. Nothing happens, yeah? Which is astonishing. So the public, the media, the institutions, the state are all behind this.
Also Catholic Church, or it's not until now?
No, yes.
Already yes.
Yes, it is. There were parents who opposed that. When I was very active in these issues, I wrote and wrote and wrote against it. Many parents called me, and they went to the bishop and wanted protection, and they never got it. They wanted to know nothing about it. Even the good bishops, they let all this happen without saying no, 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 not with us. And in the 70s and in the 80s, they were still in a position where they could have blocked this, but they did not. And
so also in Catholic schools,
yes,
Catholic schools,
yes,
that exists.
Yes, in Catholic schools. You have no assurance at all. If you everybody thinks this is necessary. And what they do is, a problem is that organizations from outside the schools who say we are the experts in this, they offer their programs to the schools. The schools say, oh, it's good, there's somebody who experts, they are educated by Uwe Sielert in the Institut für Sexualpädagogik, and they allow them to come into the schools. Then these organizations say, we must be alone with the children that they can speak freely. The teachers leave the classroom, and these organizations, Planned Parenthood, Donum Vitae, and other organizations come into the classroom and sexualize children. They teach them how to use condoms on penises. They have plastic penises, and they teach them to use condoms. They give them the whole idea that there's something like safe sex, and if you use condoms, you will not have sexually transmitted diseases, and you will not get pregnant. It's always on one line.
It's life, of course.
It's as sexually transmitted diseases and pregnancy is the same problem which young children should avoid.
Yes.
So they're immersed in these ideas. They are sort of pushed over the border. They are, tell us all the names you know for sexual intercourse. So they write all these obscene names on the blackboard, and so on and so on. So they...
It begins from which age?
Kindergarten.
Kindergarten.
Even earlier now. What happens is they break the sense of shame.
Of course.
They break the sense of shame. This is innate in us. We protect the sexual sphere. It is something private. Yes. You do not want it out in the open. And it was always considered as obscene. The grown-up jokes, we protected children from it. Now, if I say what happens there, I am ashamed. Yeah? If I say what happens to our children in a talk and speak to adults, then I'm ashamed if I have to say what is taught to our children. And this is not only Germany. This is the International Planned Parenthood, and this is the United Nations. Technical guidance for sexual education by the United Nations and a host of organizations.
We have it in Russian also already.
Yes. Or the World
UNESCO,
yes, exactly. And the World Health Organization.
Yes.
They edit a document. It's called Standards for Standards for Sexual Education in Europe. It has no authority at all, but it has WHO, World Health Organization, on top.
Said it's okay.
Yeah, and the German Bundeszentrale für gesundheitliche Aufklärung, which is a state institution, and they pushed all this material into the schools. Yeah,
so
it came from the state. It comes from the European Union. It comes from all the organizations cooperating and the United Nations. They want to sexualize our children, and now it begins in kindergarten. We now have a discussion in Austria, in Germany, whether children should have rooms in kindergarten where they can close the door and undress naked and do their doctor plays and investigate their sexual organs. This is what is happening now in kindergarten. There's something else happening in kindergarten, so-called drag queens, which is a word I had to learn. It's a drag queen is a man who fancily is makeup and lashes and glittery robes. He's a man who pretends to be a woman, and they're called drag queens, and they go into kindergarten and do reading stories with kindergarten children. We had a demonstration against this in Vienna just recently and in Munich, and politicians say, no, this is good, we need diversity. It's a bibliothek, a library, where children can get books from the municipality of Munich, and a drag queen makes an event where they tell children, you can change your sex, you are free. Children books, we have children books and children books which tell children you are free to choose your sex, whether you're a boy or a girl. And I will go into that more.
I understand. Okay.
So this book goes even further than this one. It's from 2004, I think. Juventa is a good established publisher. And they simply publish material which completely sexualizes children and robs them of shame and of any kind of moral conscience. And the authors all come from the School of Zealand, and they work out programs for schools with certain exercises like this. Here's a house, and there are all sexualities in it. It's a whorehouse. How would you furnish that house? What kind of utensils would you put into the house? So they are familiarized with sex playthings and so on and so on. It is unbelievable. They are taught perversities and of course, all kinds of perversities. Choose whether you want to be your friend a boy or a girl or both, or change it round, and drown them into a kind of sexuality which is completely separated from love and nobility and
procreation
and procreation,
yes.
Of course, of procreation,
yes.
and an acknowledgement of the dignity of the human being involved. There's just no dignity at all. You use each other as an object for lust of the most base ways, and there's no bottom to it. It goes on and on and on. And now it's in kindergarten, and the state programs say, yes, you should have rooms for children because they have a right for sexuality where they can undress and examine their bodies. And I actually have a friend. She has 5 children. She's a younger generation. She had her child in a Protestant kindergarten because she thought it was a good kindergarten. And she goes to pick up her child from the kindergarten. A door opens and 2 naked children come out of the room. And she says, what is going on here? And then it gave a huge excitement about it. And the parents were never asked whether they agreed to that. And she went to the authorities of the Protestant church who were who run the kindergarten. She got no support at all. No support. And the same thing in the Catholic Church, no support from bishops.
So, but parents, they don't want to stop it their own?
No.
Just silent?
They're silent, yeah.
So
she gets whispered support, but no open support. And even if you tell parents what is happening, I mean, now they're going with drag queens and so on. There was a demonstration and there was resistance here in Munich, and some of the authorities said, no, we don't want this.
But
so
generally, the sexual
silence. Why are the parents silent? Because they are the 3rd generation after 68. Yes. Because they are drowned in pornography. It's billions of people watching pornography regularly. Yes. And it is not only straightforward pornography, it is the entertainment industry which constantly floods people with hardcore sexual images. Yes. That's the normal thing. It's violence and sex in the normal entertainment industry. So if people see that all the time, they lose their sense.
Yes.
They lose their sense of shame.
Yes.
And you see that everywhere. I was, I don't know whether you're interested, but a few days ago I was in a restaurant here in Bavaria with a friend, and there was a couple just kissing in the restaurant, and I finally said, when I noticed, I said, listen, loud, everybody could hear it. There's a difference between a bedroom and a restaurant. Could you please stop that? Yeah? But I don't think they even have a sense of shame. They don't feel it.
Yes, I understand.
They don't feel it, yeah.
But from your experience, for example, in Africa, in Asia, there are countries where people don't want this.
Yes.
Could you, for example, in which countries can oppose this?
Look, the United Nations are pressing this into the nations. The International Planned Parenthood, who are active all around the world and are subsidized with high state subsidies, as you know, yeah? They push everywhere homosexual marriage, sexualization of children, and of course it has a nice name. It's called reproductive health services. So they use language which hides it. And reproductive health services is abortion and sexual education. And it always goes together. In the documents of the United Nations, it is always this, they always want abortion facilities, of course contraception. They spread contraception, abortion. If contraception did work, we didn't need abortion, but it's not true. Where the more contraception we have, the more abortion we have. and sex education. So the abortion industry is actually grooming their own clients, because if you have sex outside of marriage at a very early age, unable to control your sexual drive,
Yes,
you sooner or later become pregnant, and then you, of course, the next thing is you have an abortion.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, sure.
So this is a whole package, and we should not be naive. This is what the United Nations, the European Union, the governments are pushing into every single nation of this world. There is resistance in Africa, there is resistance in Asia. When I was traveling in Asian countries and showed them this material, they were speechless. They could not believe it. I've never been in Africa, but of course they don't want this either.
Generally, they don't want. Yes.
They don't want it,
And
but they push it with all the force they have. They have a very working trick. They say you will only get development aid and economic aid if you legalize same-sex marriage, if you legalize abortion, if you put sex education in your schools.
I think
this is what the West does.
I think that this is the case now in Belarus. What they're doing now.
Exactly.
We will help you with this and this if you introduce sex education.
Yes.
So I think
Exactly.
just in Belarus they make it more smart. So not directly.
They always hide it with language. It's human rights.
Yes, like this.
It's the protection of minorities.
Yes.
It is these poor women who are in such a terrible. The father raped the daughter, and the daughter is pregnant, so you must allow abortion.
Yes.
It's always the
manipulation.
same.
It's always manipulation.
It is
yes.
always manipulation.
Gabriele, in your book Global Sexual Revolution, you write about Yogyakarta principles. Can you say more about the dangers of these principles?
Yes. I advise everybody who is interested why this revolution is spreading around the earth to take notice about the so-called Yogyakarta principles. Yogyakarta is a town in Indonesia, and this is just no other reason for naming this document like that. And in 2007, I think it was, that so-called human rights experts met in Yogyakarta and put out these 29 Yogyakarta principles. And it is a blueprint how to get the homosexual LGBTIQ agenda into the whole world. And it says this and this, the state must do this and this and this, and 29 principles. Here, this book is the activist guide to the Yogyakarta principles. And it tells in detail what you do in different cultures. How do you implant the LGBT agenda in a Muslim country, in an Asian country, in an African country? If you get resistance, do it like this, do a lawsuit, do a demonstration, start with this, see where you can start the movement. It is not so difficult to do that because you have homosexuals in every culture. Ever since the human race is there, we are free to use our sexual organs with somebody of the other sex, or with the same sex, or with an animal, or whatever it is, yeah? So we have freedom, so we need a moral guidance how to deal with our sexual energy. So you have homosexuals in every culture. I think homosexuals should not be criminalized by law, but it is a difference to say, yes, in the time and age we are living in, you can live as you like to live, is a difference to legalizing same-sex marriage and destroying the institution of marriage, or educating small kids and saying you can choose your gender and you can choose your sexual orientation. That is a difference, yeah? So this guide says how you do it.
In my opinion, this is Bible of Satan for me. It's like this. It's manipulating like without knowing this.
they do it this way. You have a homosexual minority in every culture. So the organization comes and says, we will educate you, we will give lawyers at your side, and you will have a task which is important for your country. We train you, we educate you, we give you the resources, and then you start the movement in your country. This will be happening in Belarus and everywhere else.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because the international organizations are behind it, their money, their know-how, their lawyers, their everything, at their advice. How do you do it in Belarus? How you do it in Russia? How do you do it here and there? Yeah. How do you use the media? Where are the sympathetic media? How do you use propaganda for that?
Which language you use?
How do you use the language? Yes. How do you hide it behind wonderful diversity, human rights? Yes. We do not want discrimination. We are all, we do not want to suppress people. We are for freedom, of course. Yes. And yes, I want to point you to a beautiful document which has been issued this year by the Nordic Bishops' Conference of 5 Nordic countries, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and so on. I can give you the link to it. And it is a very good letter on these issues. We do not want, as Christians, we want to respect the dignity of every person. Whatever sinner the person is, we are all sinners, and sexual sin is not the only sin. So we want to have respect and respect the dignity of people. And they write from this place, but say, we have a teaching. We as Christians have a teaching about the dignity and beauty of sexuality, marriage and family. And we cannot withhold it. We want to give that to the world. We want to give it also to every homosexual who has this desire in his heart too. Yeah, and I think this letter of the Nordic bishops has a very good tone in these matters. Yeah.
In fact, this is written in catechism, but nobody wants to read catechism.
Yes.
Okay, now the question about church.
Yes.
It's difficult to ask about this, but I think it's very, very important. What is for me difficult and harmful and sad in Germany when I hear liebe Schwestern und Brüder, so sisters and brothers. Also in readings, when I hear in readings of St. Paul, liebe Schwestern und Brüder, and I, as Biblist, I know that there are no Schwester in it. Only he said brothers. So changing of language in church. So influence of feminism. When it began here in Germany, I say about Germany, and what is now with language and with this influence of feminism in church, Catholic Church in Germany.
This is a very big issue. The sexual revolutionists know that we think in language. As human beings, we have language. No animal has language as we have. And you must change the language in order to change our awareness of what is man and what is woman, and what are our values. And so from the very beginning, the attack was on language. The beginning was the Women Conference in Beijing in I may make a mistake now, it's all in my book, I wrote about this. 95, exactly. The Women Conference in Beijing. It was in the hands of the United Nations. They made the conference, and of the feminists. Bela Abzug was one of the women who forced this program through. And they knew we need a new term in language to get our agenda going. This term was gender. Gender used to be, also in English, a term for the grammatical... linguistical term for the difference between this feminine, masculine and neutral. And they pushed this term into the documents with manipulative methods which is quite amazing. Dale O'Leary wrote a book on it. She was present at the conference. And to have a new term, gender, compared to sex, in opposition to sex. Sex means biological difference between man and woman. Usually you were asked, what is your sex? Man, masculine, feminine. Now they needed this term gender to say this theory that our social gender is independent from our biological sex. Yes. That is the beginning of this whole gender movement. And I marvel at the diabolical intelligence in that. Yeah, to say we need this term. They are far-sighted, they work strategically, they work over decades. This is where we want to go. We want to destroy the identity of man and woman. And this has progressed and progressed and progressed since the Women Conference in Beijing in '95 to now kindergarten, where children get children books. You can look it up in the internet. You find a wealth of children books where children are taught. Only the fairy knows what you really are. You can choose whether you want to be a boy or a girl. So that was beginning in '95. The term was created, gender. Then it infiltrated all institutions, first the universities, the judiciary, the education system, the schools, everywhere it went into the institutions of our, in the fine structures, the microstructures of our society. And now we have the transgender movement, where children, some countries make laws that children can choose and can have their breasts cut off if they think in puberty that it's a girl movement, that girls have the idea now.
Yes, it's transgender. I can say that it's big transgender manipulation.
Yeah.
So my question about Synodaler Weg, Synodal Way in Church of Catholic Church of Germany.
Yeah.
Which dangers do you see in it? And in October will be this synod in Rome.
Yes.
How it is connected, in your opinion?
I've just published a book last week. It's this year. It's called what Jesus says, "Fürchte dich nicht, du kleine Herde." You have to look it up.
Don't worry.
Use Pusilla Grex. Yeah, because we are getting the Christians are diminishing. It's incredible. Yeah, so we will be few. Last year in 2022 in Germany, 522,000 people left the church. 240,000 died of old age. And there's nothing coming up for very few, yeah? And I think we had 1,100 people converted to Catholicism. So actually it's a free fall. The subtitle of this is "When the Shepherds Dance with the Wolves." And this is obvious pointing to the Synodaler Weg. I read the papers of the Synodaler Weg. All the papers, one is called The New Evaluation of Homosexuality. Another paper is called Sexual Diversity. And several papers on these issues. The beginning of the Synodaler Weg, the stated motivation for that was to work through the sexual abuse issues, which are in the papers every single day. And there are indeed many priests who have fallen into this abyss.
So it's true.
Yes. But there is sexual abuse everywhere. Yes. There's sexual abuse in families, in the Protestant church, in sport, everywhere. Yes. Society does not put the lens, the media do not look at that. They only look at the abuse within the Catholic Church, which indeed is, in the degree of harm it does, much worse, because a priest he doesn't only destroy the psyche of a person, he destroys the faith of the person. A priest should be a person of trust, an example, who lives a life where he can actually, with authority, preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. So if a priest falls, and many priests have fallen into this unbelievable abyss of sexually abusing young, usually it's 80% is homosexual abuse.
Yes, right.
And it is of a certain age group. It's pre-pubescent or just after. That's the young boys they are after. So the idea to found the synodal path, Synodaler Weg, was to work through these issues. There is a twist in this, because the bishops came to the conclusion that it is the sexual teaching of the Catholic Church.
What is the reason?
Which is the reason for sexual abuse. And I say, listen, can we use our common sense? If we did teach and apply the teaching on sexuality of the Catholic Church, we would have no abuse. And we would have no homosexuality, and we would have no homosexual abuse, yeah? So that is the obvious and common sense conclusion. Yes. But the problem behind is that the Catholic Church was silent on the sexual teaching, on the teaching on sex and love and marriage and family.
Humane Vitae.
Exactly, since Humane Vitae. Because in 1968, Paul VI did this astonishing encyclica Humane Vitae. Since then, since the bishops rejected that teaching and said every person in their own conscience should decide whether they use contraception, and the priests are not to interfere. The priests are to respect the conscience decision of the person. Ever since then, the Catholic Church became silent on these issues. And that is the problem. They had not the courage and the vision of proclaiming the beautiful teaching of the Catholic Church, which was deepened by the theology of the body by John Paul II. Yeah, the motivation for him to work out the theology of the body was to give a solid theological foundation to Humane Vitae and to make people understand. It was rejected by the bishops. It was not used as an instrument of making the vision of love and sexual love and marriage and family to bring it to life again. That was so necessary.
So that now we have the question: why Catholic bishops in Germany are so stressing these questions of homosexuality in this Synodaler Weg? We should bless, or we should accept. Yes. So probably this is we can explain.
They actually say in their papers. Betzing is now the Vorsitzende, the leader of the Bishops' Conference. And they say we must breach the gulf between the teaching of the Catholic faith and the majority of the people. There is a discrepancy, and what does he do? He does not say, teach them what the Church has to teach. They say, let's adopt what the world says. And they do it wholeheartedly. They adopt the whole LGBT agenda, and you have the impression that it is them who wrote the papers. They go the whole way. They say no conversion therapy. It's a terminus technicus for therapy for same-sex attraction of people who want to look at the psychological reasons. And the Church says it is forbidden, as the state says, which is absolutely terrible, because we think we are a free democracy. A client should be able to say, this is what I want to do in a therapy. And they say, therapy can only be affirmative. Therapy is only allowed to say, you have sexual tendencies, live them out.
It's okay.
Find a partner, live it, but the person might want to do something different. Yes. They might say, what happened in my youth? Why do I have this attraction? I want to change. Maybe I don't want to change, but maybe I do. And the Catholic Church now says this should be forbidden, as the state says.
Yes.
They say, as many voices within the Catholic Church, like Father Martin on a high level, a Jesuit, many Jesuits say that we have to change the teaching. We have to accept homosexuality as another way of the creation of God. They actually say that.
It's heresy, but
it's a complete heresy. And the new appointed boss of the Congregation of Faith, who has just been appointed by Pope Francis, is on these same lines. And Hollerich, who is the chief relator of the synodal path of the world, is also on these lines. Yeah. So sometimes we have the Pope who says something very, very strict against homosexuality, but he puts people in places of authority who are exactly on these lines.
So we can say about a homosexual lobby in
absolutely, a very powerful homosexual lobby, which reaches up into the highest planes of hierarchy within our church. This is the situation.
This is the answer why Synodaler Weg is so pro-homosexual.
Yes. Yeah.
Only one explanation.
They even say it. There is the Catholic Church asked independent organizations of lawyers to investigate into the abuse cases, and in the diocese, every diocese does this, and the lawyers who did it for Munich actually explicitly, I quoted in this little book, explicitly say these networks of homosexuals reach up to the very top of the hierarchy. And there is a potential of blackmailing people. Of course there is, yeah, by bringing this out into the open, and they say it into this in the document which they produced.
How do you see the future of church in Germany? Will it be schisma, or people will say, okay, we will go in this way?
There can be a so-called dirty schisma, which means it's not a formal schisma, but it is in reality is a schisma, and that schisma is there already.
Already?
Oh yes, oh yes. And this is the Pusilla Grex, the small left, the remnant, the small remnant, which the true Catholic believers will be very few. And it is likely that they will be persecuted.
Yeah. Probably, yes.
Yeah.
How do you think, how much believers who are real believers will stay in Germany in few years?
I can't say.
But you see that remnants they exist.
Yes, definitely, and there are marvelous new. They're everywhere. There are new movements or organizations or groups who actually give the full teaching. I say it's like, you have rotting trees, but underneath is fresh green.
Yes.
And I think God has a plan in all this. The crisis is global, but what is coming behind this crisis is also global. Yes. Yeah, the crisis is huge, but we know from our own experience and our own life that crisis always comes to new growth.
Yes.
And God can always bring and does that, bring good out of bad. And so my only hope is Jesus Christ. He became man, he incarnated, he went through all the sufferings of human life, he was nailed to the cross and he resurrected. This is not done in vain. Okay. There is a plan behind this. And I think we have to look clearly at what is happening. But we as Christians have an indestructible source of hope.
Yes.
And that is Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Wonderful interview.
Okay.
Really, thank you very much.
Okay.